Welcome back to another episode of Data Nerds. I'm Mike Brown, joined by
Pat Healy.
and Pat is leading us through uh, this case. So
Oh
take
yeah,
it away,
we're
Pat.
we're back with the PowerPoints. We are back with the PowerPoints. We got some good distilled information, some cohesive thinking now. So, for people who can't see, this is episode 20. I feel like we've had a lack in number counting, so I went back and counted up, and
You
we're at
counted.
20 now.
Nice.
um, But yeah, today we got early ACL isometric testing, post-op week 12 and 16. So we'll go and review the case a little bit first, just to give some context. This is now 18-year-old dancer as of like a month ago, but 17 to 18-year-old dancer with patellar tendon autograft and a lateral meniscus repair. I think this is important just because this did limit weight bearing, which then is going to have some longer deficits for like strength and activation and such. Um, Interesting enough, we were treating this patient for just about a month prior to surgery because they were initially diagnosed with a patellar dislocation. Um, and then after like 2 weeks of treatment, uh, we recommended a second opinion. So they went to a local surgeon who we get a lot of ACLs from, and then they instantly ordered an MRI and confirmed ACL, and then we're within surgery, I think, that next week. Um,
That's wild.
yeah, it was very wild because this girl came in and it was pretty much a month after the initial incident, came in, knee was still super swollen, apprehensive to like extension and like positive for a lot of exams, a lot of guarding with like Lockmans and stuff. So like that was not great to take a peek at. Couldn't really get a good thorough exam on it, but it was funny. I remember sitting down and her father was there, and the dad was like, "So how do we know this isn't a torn ACL?" I'm like, "I'm so happy you asked." I guess also like just for context, she's a dancer. This was a non-contact dancing injury. She was landed, you know, quote unquote wrong, and just happened to have a tear. Classic like valgus mechanism, and then yeah, so they got preoperative care, and then surgery was on the 14th of August. So let's go ahead and see what testing we got. So we just got the isometric knee extension and flexion at 60-degree of flexion. Yes, I understand. Isometric knee flexion will have a greater peak torque at like 30 degrees. Yes, I understand. This isn't optimum. Am I trying to change it? Of course, but this is what we got now.
Is this at in the HUMAC or Biodex that you guys have?
Yeah, this is truthfully up to me to changing the parameters. That way it kind of flows a little bit better. But right now it's just set up like that and it just flows really easily. And then also with the 60 degrees, there's minimal contribute contribution of gravity to the limb for knee
Mhm.
flexion, while like we would at least I would want to zero out the limb if we were going to be at 30 degrees of knee flexion, just because there's going to be some gravitational pull there, which could inflate your values. Um,
Yep.
but so we did post-op week 12 and post-op week 16, and we're actually coming up on post-op week 20. And we only did isometric just from doing some repeat isometrics in training. The actual like rate at which torque was being developed wasn't great, and at this point, like I only want absolute, and if absolute isn't looking great, then in my opinion, why waste my time with isokinetic at this point? So like I said, I need this info to assess torque capability, and we're doing serial testing to ensure that we are progressing appropriately, but also preventing a delay in rehab because we don't want to go weeks thinking that we aren't someplace when we could be, and vice versa, thinking that we are someplace and not. So,
Just quick question before we go on. If, say, at week 20, she hits some numbers that you're looking to see pre isokinetic testing, would you just go for, like immediately from isometric to isokinetic, or like would you then look at isokinetic like the next time or something like that? I don't know if you're already talking
So
about this
wait, so
later.
are you asking me for week 20, am I gonna do isometric and isokinetic?
Yeah, like would you do isokinetic like if she like hits what you want
Oh,
isometrically?
um, so yes. Um, we'll get into it when we look at the numbers, but
Cool.
as the fact we'll take a peek and then I'll explain more. But yes, to answer your question in short, yes.
Cool.
Okay, so results from post-op week 12. Um, Also good to note, body weight was recorded at 120 pounds. This is important because if we don't continuously change this, then we can get like a over or under inflation of our torque outputs relative to body weight. And that comes a little bit important for post-op week 16, but we can see that just right side, the absolute and the actual rate, because we see how it's not like a steep curve. It's that nice, somewhat curvy linear curve up until they reach their peak. And actually, right off the bat, hit 80%, which I was quite impressed with, to be honest, after being non-weight bearing and such. That's going to be at
For
the for peak torque for knee
peak
extension,
torque.
which is, yeah, sorry, I guess I could have explained that. Top here is knee extension, bottom is knee flexion. I'm just looking at the peak torque, which is foot pounds for the value and body weight. Yep. Yeah, you got that cursor right at that. Nice. Yeah, so
Nice.
large deficit side to side, but for not being a strength trained individual, because this is the first time they are actually lifting any weights, and also being not non-weight bearing for 6 weeks, to come right out of the gate at 80% on surgical and 97% on non-surgical, pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hamstring,
That's pretty solid.
yeah, hamstrings, being at that 60 degrees, going to be a little like underinflated, but pretty symmetrical side to side, which like, for not being strength trained, I would potentially see like in most patients, especially not being a hamstring graft. So, but want more. Give me more.
Is there yeah, is there a percent body weight you're looking for peak hamstring in this position?
Yeah, so we still use like the 60%, but I would assume that if someone is hitting 60% at 60 degrees, which once you take out compliance, they're actually more like 70, or like some people who are real, slinging it back there, 80 degrees of knee flexion, like they're probably going to be way beyond that threshold when you actually bring them up to like 30 degrees.
Mhm.
So,
Cool.
yeah, it's like one of those things where like I want to change it now, but I guess I could, because it's like what value am I getting from these? But also it's like consistency. I don't know.
Yeah. Um, there was something else I was gonna say. I guess is there anything else like in these that you look at other than the peak torque?
Not right now, because I'm only concerned about absolute torque production. I'm not worried about rate of torque develop or yeah, rate of torque production. And so I just tell a patient, I want you to take the whole 5 seconds to kick out as hard as you can, not really cueing them for any kind of rate, where that might be like, I want you to kick out as hard as you can, as fast as you can. So
Yep.
no, I'm not like, I'll observe it, of course. Like I'll observe like what's the torque at 200, 400 and stuff, but I'm not gonna use that information to guide my treatment right now.
What do you think about I'm looking at like the force curves on the for extensors on the left. Like what do you think about it being like kind of so up and down there? Obviously it's still higher than the right, but there's like kind of jagged.
Um, Again, I potentially, due to how this is the first time they've done it on the left, like we've
Mm,
done it we might have done it once as like a intervention on the left prior to testing, but this was just like the first real iteration of like isometrics on the left side. And so I'd probably chalk that up to just like learning, like task development. Um, like she doesn't have any pain with it. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, sorry,
All right.
yawn. Cool.
Next
Anything
one.
else?
No, 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 no. Let me see next one. Okay. Post-op week 16 now. Body weight 124. It's important because it changes kind of the relative values. So went up, and we don't need to like talk about where they came from and where they're going because the next slide will be a progression sheet.
Cool.
But again, just to take a quick peek, 84% body weight on knee extension and 106 on the left side for knee extension. So both went up even with the relative increase in body weight. And then the knee flexion on that left side, you see that little like all little curve that goes down and all that. The patient cramped, and that was on their last rep.
Oh,
So
jeez.
uh, it's just what happens sometimes. So, but again, that also went up. I believe that went up bilaterally for hamstring or knee flexion
Let's
as
see.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just not as much.
no, and so we can actually let's go ahead and let's go to the next slide here, Mike. All right, so
This.
this is the progression sheet. So when you're in the Humac system, there's a report or there's a progress little tab, and you can spit out these like progress reports between two testing dates for the same test. And so, if we're looking at the surgical side there for the right peak torque, we can see that even with the adjustment and body weight, they went up by 8%. I would say, from what I've heard in the community, like a 10% change, positive or 10% increase every 4 to 6 weeks is generally typical. Um, maybe you would see higher if it's all just inhibition based, but if it's more or less just like pure strength, then like that's kind of anecdotally what I've heard. So kind of along that time frame, right? And if we're going based off of that, they should, you know, coming up here be pretty close to getting to like 90% of body weight for the right knee extension. And then yeah, even on the left, they went up by quite a bit as well, 13% increase on the left. So if we want to take a peek at it, there is the torque. It will also spit out the comparison between the torque at different time points. Um, now,
These
this is
ones here.
where, yeah, kind of like what you were saying, do I care about these? Because it is nice to see that they went up, right? But it's also like, all right, did this just go up because your absolute got better, right? Like your
Yeah.
entire ceiling increased. So are you going to draw a whole lot from looking at torque just yet? Like those torque time time points.
Hmm.
So uh next one I believe is just the hamstring progression. Again,
Cool.
progress on both there. 21% increase on the right, 6% on the left. So looking good. Do you have any
Solid.
questions about anything, Mike?
No, I think this is just interesting. The 21 versus 6%, where like it was a increase of 4 foot-pounds on the left, but what's that, 12 on
Yeah,
the right? So like that makes sense. It's just percent changes are also interesting to me just because, they're also ratios, so they're determined by
right,
how large these numbers are in the first place.
right.
Um, but cool. It's cool to see.
Yeah. I guess another note is, how did the patient feel during these? Uh, from what I remember on both of them, they did not have significant graft site pain, which was huge. I would
Yeah.
also chalk that up for a win. Now, granted, they had graft site soreness for like 2 or 3 days. Like it's gonna blow up the knee, right? Like you do a max test, it's gonna hurt the knee. But you just have to adjust accordingly to get them back on track and not just keep on squeezing, like allow a little bit of a deload and get it going again.
Cool. Let's go for it.
So interpretation, where am I going with this? I want to begin Isokinetic testing to get more info about their ability to produce torque under tighter time constraints. And why is that? Is because although absolute torque is essential, kind of like what we were just talking about, like you have to raise your whole ceiling if you want to be able to produce greater torque at shorter time intervals. But also, if I am not measuring that isokinetic, then I might be getting a false sense of when they can begin some plyometrics, because I think a lot of people hear how, you have to hit X body weight percentage to begin plyometrics or jogging and such. And to that, yes, that is true, right? Like you need to have some established amount of absolute torque. But I think now I've even like bought into this more heavily working with this patient where you need to have some degree of torque production if you hope to execute those properly. Because if you don't, then you're just going to shift away from it or it's just going to hurt like hell. Right. So, uh, yeah. So on post-op week 20, we're going to introduce some isokinetic testing. And I already did kind of like a pseudo quote unquote test that we'll get into in a little bit.
Cool.
All right.
All right,
So,
you're
case
good
in
to go.
point, why? All right. That should pause. Yeah. So, for everyone who's watching on YouTube, that was a double leg pogo, unassisted. And upon watching, you would notice that one knee is bending a whole lot more than the other. If we want to do a quick review as Mike tries to find the mute button because he doesn't want to hear
Yeah.
my
I
voice.
don't know where the
Nah, just let it rip. It's
is.
okay. It's okay,
I
Mike.
bet for audio listeners, it's just gotta suck. But
It's
okay.
all right.
All right, you're good to go.
All right. So why might this be, right? I think anyone can look at this and recognize that this is not how it's supposed to look. Um, let's, bring back to note that's the right side that is the surgical side, so the one closest to us in this video from the POV. And so if we want to go to next slide, Mike, and I have a
Yeah.
little
Are you gonna
screenshot.
just yeah? Are you gonna describe in words what's going
Yeah,
on? Yes.
here we
Cool.
are. So I guess upon a review, I showed this video back to the patient and I asked them, well, first I asked them, how did this feel? And they said, it felt all right. It just felt like my right side, my surgical side, was a little heavy. Played it back to them, and I didn't even have to tell the patient that this is not how it looks like. And they gave me this face of like, oh my God, what is happening? Um, so we moved away from these because clearly this person is not having a great time trying to put force through some knee flexion. They're obviously just stiffening that knee. So, and it just goes straight down through the ankle, and nothing has to happen at the knee joint. While the left side, as we can tell in this photo, is bending a whole lot more. Um, what we did, we pivoted to some assisted like repeated squat jumps where put a power band overhead. And I was just saying, hey, I want you to think about, like loading down into this and not like jumping high, but we're just trying to get some rhythmical kind of loading pattern. And then doing some external Q split squats where placing a like foam roller in front of the foot and saying, hey, I want you to progress your knee until you lightly tap this and then come back up for again, just some external cueing of getting some comfort with putting that knee over toe. Um, I will caveat this has now made it a little challenging for that graph site because the graft site symptoms are slightly more elevated now because we are trying to get some better like control under these knee flex positions. So trying to manage that accordingly. But again, why do I think this has happened? To answer your question, Mike, is I don't believe that they have the torque ability under these smaller time frames to produce enough force to complete the task. Okay. Um, and so I tested this hypothesis a little bit the other day when I was working with the patient because we are going to do isokinetic testing and I want to do some training prior to. So let's go next slide. So yeah, we did 3 sets of 5 reps at the 60 degrees per second, which is what we do for our testing. And I just told them, hey, I want you to progress your intensity over each set, getting to around 90% on your final set. I will also be clear that this patient is very competitive. If they even somewhat make a goal in their head, they will just dig themselves so deep to achieve it. So do I think they went above 90%? Probably based on like their facial expression because they saw kind of that max 66 foot-pounds on the screen and they were like, there's no way I'm only kicking 66 foot-pounds. And I think they were trying a lot harder to get it higher than that. But case in point, this is exactly what we're doing for testing. And this patient wanted to get more than that and they couldn't. And they said that they just couldn't kick out any harder. I do think this was also slightly limited by graft site pain. She said that she had minor to moderate graft site pain compared to previous treatment sessions. But even so, when down at that 90 degrees and coming up from 90 to 60 and only getting 66 foot-pounds, which is not even near what a true 90% of her absolute would be, which would be around 90 foot-pounds, is, bringing light to me that, hey, I think we need to actually get better at producing more torque before we even get into some more plyometrics, because yes, your absolute values are telling me that like, hey, you're ready to do some plyometrics because you hit 80% and more in body weight. But when we look at the rate at which he's producing torque, it's just not there right now. And I think that's going to be a rate limiting factor when we try getting to like plyos and such,
Yeah. I don't know if this is in later, but I guess you kind of answered it before. Would you play around with like tempo at all for exercises? Like I'm thinking about like a split squat and like doing a fast eccentric, a fast concentric in a split squat.
We have done that. We've been doing that for I think like 3 weeks now, where yeah, I have her do a split squat and I say, I want you to think about just like a spring, I want you to drop down in this and pop out of it. And she does it well. But my current opinion on the matter is I think you still need to have some supplemental like isokinetic driven work. Now, granted, I'm very lucky to have an isokinetic dynamometer in my clinic that I can do this with. But if the idea is, I can try to bias this as much as I can through closed chain with like the external cueing and such. But if I have the capabilities to just isolate this and do some isokinetic torque development, on the isokinetic dynamometer, I think I'm also going to do that because this is a pure capacity that I need to improve upon. And I know that's going to target it, and do I still think there's some merit to like doing closed chain because that's what you're going to have to do in the real world? Like by all means, yeah, but still trying to find a good balance of both, if that answers your question.
Yeah, because I was also curious to like see if you saw any correlation between like the quality of that and the quality on the isokinetic, because I don't have an isokinetic dynamometer. So I'm like, what other proxies could I use? Like, obviously something is better than nothing. So like I still use the isometric torques, but I understand that, there is going to be a difference between isometric and isokinetic tests. So I'm like, how can I replicate some sort of isokinetic test without actually having a dynamometer in my clinic?
Yeah. I've seen some people do like a back against the wall, heel against the wall, 6-inch lateral step down, where you just kind of go through that motion at a set degrees per second and see, how well does it look, how many can you do, and such, because that is going to get such a large moment arm on the quads. I think that I haven't played around with that with this patient. I'm assuming it's gonna, it's gonna suck for them, but it would.
Yeah, I was thinking like that sounds terrible.
Yeah. But I have seen that. Like I said, I've not tried it. And when it comes to the actual split squats, since she's never done strength training before, trying to do these things and like explain it and like draw conclusions upon it has been challenging, because it looks fine and she's like, oh, it feels all right, but I'm like, I don't know how much is like, I don't know how much of it can I actually give merit to when it's like, all right, you're doing the thing, but you're not like doing the thing. And how long does it take me? How long is it going to take you to actually do the thing? And I know that was a lot of verbiage, but I guess real world example is when I do it, I put a little like pad underneath her knee, so it has that external cue that like if you touch this, like you're going like probably too low. But she'll just like drop into it and then pop out. So it's like no true like eccentric control at all, because she's just slamming her contralateral knee into the pad and standing up again. I'm like, no, I want you to like be quick down and come back up. And then she'll just still do it. I'm like, all right, well, am I just beating a dead horse? Like, how long is this going to
like
take?
a tack or something in the in the thing, and be like, you don't want to get your knee stabbed with this tack. So
yeah, right.
so
or just take the pad away. Take the pad away and be like, just know if you drop into this, you're gonna bash your other knee into the ground.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just be like, don't do that.
Don't do it.
Make it hurt.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. It's kind of where we're at with them. So kind of just to summarize, absolute torque's improving. You need that to improve if you want to get torque out, like the actual ability to produce torque better. But I think I need to see a lot better torque capabilities before we start doing anything like a counter movement or a drop jump. So kind of like what I said, we're going to be getting some supplemental RTD, rate of torque development work. Not so much like the maybe quote unquote classical, where it's like you just do repeated like fast as you can, hard as you can kicks, but more just isokinetic, trying to see if she can just produce force through the full range of motion and under those like small time epochs you get at each degree. So
sick.
Yeah, dog.
Cool.
Any other questions?
I don't know I don't think I have any questions, because that was just solid.
Thanks, man. Yeah, really putting the work on this PowerPoint. We're back. We're back with the PowerPoints.
Back in high school with our PowerPoint.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. So maybe we'll do a secondary installment on when we get some isokinetic and repeat isometric and kind of see where we go from here. Definitely been a fun case so far, and definitely learning a lot so far, and hope to spread some knowledge, but also get some feedback along the way,
Sick. Love it. Cool. Well, that has been another episode of Data Nerds / Reading Rehab. As always, if you like what you're listening to or watching on YouTube, please leave a nice review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or subscribe on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram at Reading Rehab Pod. Thanks.